This recipe today comes from my German mother-in-law. It's a nourishing, delicious chicken soup, a clear broth-style soup that's quite elegant and restrained. It's also a little unusual in that a delicate savoury custard is sliced into small pieces and added at the end, which is a nice little surprise as you eat it. I've made it 3 times in the last month for my postpartum daughter because it is nourishing. Now, all the food safety in Australia says that you shouldn't wash chicken anymore because the bacteria can spread so easy, and really it's not necessary. So what I have here is a 1.3 kilo chicken. You can have a bigger chicken if you wish, or slightly smaller. And I place that into a large pot. Then into the pot I put 2 litres, 8 cups Australian of cold water, and just lightly season it, about a half a teaspoon or a teaspoon of salt. And because I'm going to be using parsley later, I just throw in a few stems, not many, maybe 3 or 4. And I take this to the stove and I bring it to the boil. And once it comes to the boil, I reduce the heat to low and place a lid on it. Now, if your lid doesn't have a hole, you can just put the lid on slightly ajar. And what I'm going to do now is gently simmer that for about 1.5 hours. So it poaches and all that flavour is drawn out from the bones. And also it may take longer than 1.5 hours depending on the size of your chook. Now, a lovely little addition to this soup, and it's optional, is an egg custard. And I make that now so I can put it in the fridge and set it up firm. So simply into a bowl, crack 2 eggs, then add 125 mils of milk, a little pinch of salt, and just a tiny pinch of nutmeg. And whisk that together just until the egg yolks are dissolved, where you can no longer see them. Now, there's a few ways to cook this custard, and my mother-in-law actually puts it in a plastic bag and puts it in a pot of water, boiling water, and cooks it that way. However, I prefer the oven method, so I lightly butter a glass dish or a ceramic dish, and I pour the custard into it, and I put that inside another small dish, and then I pour some warm water, just tap warm water, into the dish to come about halfway up the sides of the glass dish. And then I just lightly cover it with some baking paper or some alfoil. And I put that in an oven of 140 degrees Celsius with a fan, or 160 conventional, and that will take between 25 to 30 minutes. I just want it to set. Now, before I put it in the oven, I'll show you another way you can do it, is just put the dish in a pan and fill it up with water, well, halfway, so it comes up halfway the side of the dish in here, and then you can cover it and then gently simmer it on the stove, probably for about 20 minutes as well. But the oven method is easy for me because it's set and forget. So the next thing I do is I prepare the soup vegetables, and everything except for the parsley can go in at once. Now, this recipe is all about restraint, and to be honest, that's not one of my strongest points, but I'm getting better at it. Now, just 1 carrot, and what you want to do is cut them into really little pieces. So everything in this soup should be about the same size. 1 stick of celery, and to get it into the small dice, I just split it down the middle and then chop it finely. Next up is 1 small leek, and these ones I bought already sort of peeled. And you know, leeks are notorious for having dirt in them, but how I like to wash them is I chop them first, and because I want to keep it nice and small dice, I quarter it and then dice it. Then I pop it in the colander and give it a good rinse in the sink. Sometimes I feel these trimmed ones that you can buy like this have already been cleaned, but it doesn't hurt because a bit of dirt in this soup would probably spoil it. Then 1 small onion, finely diced. And the last soup vegetable is a cauliflower. And you only want really little florets in this soup. So remove the core, and sometimes it's easy just to cut it in half to do that. And this is probably the most tedious bit, but break it into florets, but into very small little florets. Oops, that's a custard. The custard is not at all ready, so I'll put it on for another 10 minutes, which will make it 30 minutes all up. Sometimes it's easy if you cut off the stem and then just pull off the little florets from that. I think that's enough cauliflower. So that was just like a medium cauliflower. It wasn't too large. I won't use all of that. And I'll just weigh this for you so I can tell you how much what I'm using today weighs. 400 grams. And I'll put that into the bowl with the other soup vegetables. And I'll save this cauliflower and all the stalks for dinner. Now that's all the soup vegetables, but I do prepare a couple of other things, so when the stock is finished, it's really easy to put together. And that's ready. Carefully remove it from the hot water, and that is lovely and set. So what I'll do now is I'll just wait for it to come to room temperature, then I'll pop it in the fridge, and by the time everything else is ready, that will be lovely and set, and I can chop it into small pieces. And this doesn't go until the very end for the last 2 minutes together with the parsley and the soup noodles. Now I usually use curly parsley because I like it better, but they only had flat leaf parsley available. And all I want to do is finely chop that. And that's probably a good tablespoon or 2 tablespoons of finely chopped parsley. So the soup noodles my mother-in-law refers to are those beautiful tiny little soup noodles you can buy. They're pasta noodles from most supermarkets. However, they don't sell them gluten-free. If you're gluten-free like me, I've found the best way to substitute that, and this is also a little bit tedious, is just to break off tiny little bits of pasta. My mother-in-law doesn't add the raw pasta to the soup, but she cooks it separately. And what that does, it prevents the soup from getting cloudy. And it doesn't take long. That'll do. It's 1/3 cup. Now I'll cook it. A little bit of salt and then the pasta. And you really only want to cook this until al dente because it's going in the soup. And rinse them under cold water just to separate the strands so they don't stick together and stop the cooking process. And that's about all the prep I can do right now. So the chicken has been simmering away now for about 100 minutes, an hour 40. And I'm going to carefully remove the chicken, and it will probably fall apart. When removing chicken, always let it run out first, not down your arm. And this is the pot that I'll be finishing cooking the soup in. My mother-in-law actually never says to do this, but I just want to make sure I get the broth lovely and clear. So I'm just going to put a clean cotton tea towel over the fine mesh strainer and very carefully pour the stock through. And by using the cloth and the fine mesh strainer, it ensures that the broth that is left is lovely and has no sediment in it. Now before I put this back on the stove, I'm going to cut the chicken into pieces. And this is where you need restraint, so the legs don't get utilised. But you know, they're delicious, like right now with a bit of salt on top, they're beautiful. Or in a sandwich, they don't get wasted. But for the soup, my mother-in-law only uses, she says, the nice part of the chicken, which is the white meat, and not the skin or the wings. And you're probably thinking, why use a whole chicken if I'm just going to use the breast? And the reason is it creates flavour. So basically we've made a very light chicken stock. Did your grandmother used to dry the wishbone and then make a wish with you? Mine did. So now chop it into small pieces. Right, now to put it all together. So I'm just going to bring it back to a boil. But before I do that, I'm going to taste this. Now, I lightly salted it before, but I want to see where the seasoning is at the moment. It has a lovely chicken flavour, but it's crying out for seasoning. Now, my mother-in-law says 3 bouillon stock cubes, but I feel in Germany they're smaller. So I add 2, just 2 small ones, or 2 teaspoons of chicken stock powder, and I'm just using this lovely Australian brand actually. It's organic chicken stock powder. I'll have another taste. It can do with a bit more seasoning, so I'm adding another one. But you be the judge of that. You taste it. I would start with 2 and then taste it and see if it needs a 3rd one. And when it comes back to a boil, just reduce the heat a bit and add the chicken to the soup, together with all the soup vegetables that I chopped earlier. And once it all comes back to the boil, reduce the heat and simmer it only for about 15 minutes, just until the vegetables are just cooked. And while the soup vegetables are cooking, I'm just going to slice up the custard. And that's just been in the fridge for an hour or so. Uh-oh, didn't all quite make it, doesn't matter, even though I greased it. Now this is really delicate custard, and that's how it's supposed to be. And what I'm going to do is just chop it into little cubes. They're a lovely little addition. And I'll get this bit out as well. So light little cubes like that. So they have been simmering away now for 13.5 minutes, and I'm going to check the carrot. If that's cooked, everything's cooked, and the best way to test it is to taste it. And now is also a good time to taste it for seasoning. Lovely, but it does need a little bit of salt, and if you want to add pepper, I would add white pepper so it doesn't discolour the beautiful look of the soup. Give it a gentle stir. I'm just going to taste it for seasoning again. Oh, nearly there. Just a tiny bit more salt and a little bit more pepper. I add the pasta, the egg custard little bits, which will firm up a little bit. And the very last ingredient is the finely chopped parsley. As soon as it comes back to the boiling point, I'll put my timer on for 2 minutes. Done. Smells so good. And then a lovely bowl full. And the broth is clear. And just like anything else, this will taste even better the next day. And you can finish it with a little bit more fresh parsley. I hope I've done this recipe justice today. Mike's mum is a wonderful cook, and I love watching her cook because she cooks with intention. Even if it's just boiling potatoes, they turn out fluffy and beautiful. And you know, apart from anything else, this delicious chicken soup is really great for the upcoming cold weather we're about to get in Australia. Hopefully I'll see you again soon, and thank you so much for watching.